One important part of St. Francisville's history is the St. Francisville and New Roads Ferry. Come with us on our adventure across the mighty Mississippi River. But pay attention because the ferry will soon be gone.
Yeah, welcome to the Ferry St. Francisville. I'm the Marine Superintendent for this ferry crossing, and this is one of our oldest ferry in operation at this crossing, and we're just preparing for the new bridge to come and serve the public here. So we'll show you around a little bit of the St. Francisville while you're here today. Crew room. This is where the guys hang out when the vessel's in operation. So you'll have an engineer in here and also two deckhands. Now next door here we have a similar room which is for passengers that are not in vehicles. They'll come in on foot. And this crossing, since we don't have a village real close to the landing, we don't usually get a lot of foot traffic. The only way they could steer the ferry was using a wheel. Right now we have hydraulic steering, so we let the girls sometimes steer this, thinking they're doing it, but we actually steer the ship with the lever over there. So we tell it to keep turning to port or to starboard, and then we'll stop where we want the rudder. This is only used now in emergencies. Well, if you lose all your power and you throw this lever on the side, you can actually turn the rudders with just that wheel. But it takes a lot of turns and a little bit of power. Awesome. Yeah. But you can mainly straighten the rudders so that you can go ahead instead of being turning all the time. But in the old days, they had to do it really by hand all the time, and the wheels would actually be so tall they would actually go through the deck. They had to be very wide, the wheels, right, to get that leverage going. So they actually had a cutout in the deck that part of the wheel was recessed. You know, you turn it and it would actually go below the deck. You can see those in Natchez, by the way, at the Maritime Museum up on the river. I think y'all had some questions.
What is the hardest job to do on the ferry?
The hardest job to do on a ferry, physically the hardest job to do on a ferry, is the deckhands. They have to, every time you leave the dock, they have to raise the ramp and untie the lines and count the cars and go back inside and record all that information. And 5 minutes later, 6 minutes later, when they get to the other side, they have to tie it back up, lower the ramp, make sure everybody gets off safely. And our deckhands do that for 12 hours straight. And they have to do it every 15 minutes. So that's the hardest physical job to do. The most responsible job, though, overall safety of the vessel, is the captain that runs the vessel. So that they're more responsible for the overall safety of the vessel. And then the engineer has a very important, because if the engineers don't keep the machinery running, the captain can't do his job or her job. These vessels, this vessel was built in 1967. And believe it or not, that's one of our newer ferries. We've got some that were built in the 50s, the smaller ones. This vessel and the New Roads was built in 1976. But it was copied from the blueprints of the St. Francisville. That this vessel did so well, they copied almost identically the vessel. So this one had just had a 5-year overhaul, so it's in excellent shape now. And because we're not in salt water, the actual steel hull and the cabin holds up quite well. This vessel will go downriver to one of our other crossings. We definitely will use this at another crossing. And the New Roads is due to go into a 5-year overhaul for that vessel at the end of next month. And I fully expect the state to be able to use these vessels. And they'll probably retire some of the older vessels that are not economically viable to maintain anymore. So these two vessels will be used by the state. They have a lot of value left in them.
But I tell you, my last year in school, I got operator's license. They let me have operator's license. And up to 65 feet. I have a boat up to 65 feet length. And then after that, well, I went on and, I went to Korea. Full tour duty there. And when I got out, I came back to the river.
And your father was the ferry captain before you,
Before
is that
me, right.
And so you grew up here.
He taught me everything I knew. He really did.
You were on the river your whole life?
Yeah, my whole life, practically. That's right. That's what I'm saying. I've passed about five or six hurricanes down here. I've seen just about everything you can imagine. We had a tug and a barge. We crossed about 30 to 35 cars a day. And the barge, it was a cypress barge, and they would put oakum between the seams, and the oakum would pop out sometimes, and then the barge would leak a little. Well, they had a pitcher pump, you know, an old type pitcher pump, one on each end. And I'd sit on that block of wood and with a pitcher pump and pump all the way across the river. And on the way back, I'd go to the other pitcher pump. That was the hardest part. I was a pretty good man in those days, though. I was strong. We used to stay that night. It would be real cold. I mean, cold, and all we had. It's not like this. It wasn't near about like this. Had a little coal oil heater about yay high, and I just hugged that heater at night. You see, this wasn't built up like it is now. It was lower. We would take that small ferry, we'd go up the creek, right up the creek, and dock. We'd dock right behind the oyster bar, right in the curve. And then, if it got high, we cut a right away. You know what the oxidation pond is, the town oxidation pond? That's where we ran right on top of that oxidation pond. There's a little oak tree there right now, by that fence. You'll see it if you go down there. It's a nice little oak tree. That oak tree is dead center where the ferry we used to dock on the riverside. When the wind switched, when the eye went over, it got bad. Waves, it swamped us. My dad and I was young then. And the water got waist deep in the pilot houses. So we made it to the bank and held on the willow saplings and willow trees all up and down here. That's the way we did. Yeah, that was years ago. The truck with the elephant couldn't pull up the ramp. So what they did, they eased the truck back, they unloaded the elephant, and the trainer had the elephant get up against the truck, and they shoved the truck right on up the ramp.
And you had a circus on the ferry with you.
Well, that was early years. They even crossed a little boy on here one day, he and his mother. She was going out with a man from St. Francisville, and he had a monkey. The monkey got out of his car, he had the window down. Now it wasn't this boat here, it was a smaller, it was the Feliciana. They're running that boat at White Castle now. It was 15 cars, it held 15 cars. That little monkey made his way up in the pilot house. Now you talk about something. That was something. And finally, we got him out of the pilot house and across the river, and the monkey got off the boat. It got up into a big old willow tree on the riverbank. That poor little boy, I felt sorry for him. He stayed there about 3 hours trying to coax that monkey down. His mother finally went uptown and got 2 or 3 bananas. That's how he got him down. was 2 o'clock at about 2:15 in the morning. I was on the other side. And I felt a surge. And I said, my God, I said, there's no boat moving the spirit, you know, towboat going up and down the river to make that kind of a wave. And I looked out in the river, I didn't see anything. And I looked toward the bank, and my engineer, his grandson is a principal at the school, Nikkei's. His grandfather was my engineer. He'd been back to station wagon by the river. When I looked back, water was running all out, just pouring out of that station wagon. I measured, I had a ruler, I had a tape measure on the boat, and I measured 42 feet. Water went up that ramp.
And the ferry has just been a real asset to our community, because without the ferry, people could not work in new roads. It's a power plant, so we have a lot of people that work in new roads, the Ponca Parish, it's paper mills over here, and go to the state prison. And the ferry's just been a big part of our economy over the many years it's been there to help our growth and help people get back and forth across the river. If it wasn't for the ferry, we really wouldn't have a very good relation with new roads or Ponca Parish, because you would have to go to Baton Rouge and you would not have the people coming back and forth without the ferry.
How do you feel about the ferry leaving?
It's kind of mixed. We really need the bridge for the area, but the ferry is such a icon of our community and a tourist attraction. And with the new bridge, you won't have a bicycle path across it. So what we were really going to try to do, with the state's in financial trouble now, is to have the ferry run in the daytime hours is what our goal is, but I don't know if we're going to get that done right now.
This design was chosen for with a cable stayed bridge. You can get a long span in the middle of the river to not interfere with barge traffic moving up and down the Mississippi River.